this dream that I had. It's a little more difficult for me to remember, but I was in this futuristic industrial area. It was more of a, I guess you could call it, commercial area. It just looked futuristic, the city. And I went into this Subway, and I went up to the counter, and I saw Tom Arnold, the actor, standing behind the counter, and he had that smile, and he asked me, what I would like, and I gave him my usual order. And as I go down to pay for it, I said to him, I'm surprised that you're here. I wouldn't expect you, being as famous as you are, to be working at a Subway. And he said, oh, occasionally I work them because I own them, and I own about 100 franchises. And so I asked him if they were profitable for him, and he said yes, very, very profitable. That's why I'm in it. And I remember I said, well, maybe I could open my own franchise. Maybe I could be as successful as you, and maybe become a star. And he says, it's a good possibility. You want to sit down and talk about it? So we go over and we're talking about it a little bit. I can't remember the conversation that was going on, but I knew it was about that. And I hear the door open, and I look behind me, and this guy, he looked typical thievery kind of. He just had that look, just kind of, you can tell when somebody is interested in stealing and not interested in buying. And so what I ended up doing was I looked at Tom, and I just kind of, it was that look like, are we going to do anything or just sit here? Well, he just kind of nodded at me like, let's keep talking. So we continued to talk, and then I hear a bag rustle, and it was one of the Subway bags. And I turn around, and he's got, he's doing this as he's walking towards the door because he's got this bag in his hand. And he starts to open the door, and I said, hey, asshole. And he pauses, and I said, yeah, you asshole, where do you think you're going with that bag? And he just kind of turns around, he drops it, and he says, I guess I'm going nowhere. And then he takes off running. And I asked Tom, I said, should we go after him? Tom says, no, don't worry about it, let the cops handle it. And I said, what did I say? I said, you must lose quite a bit of money on Thieves. And he explained to me that because I had bought that sub from him, that paid for the stuff that the guy would have stolen. And I went over and I picked up the bag, and I looked at it, and it didn't have just Subway stuff in it. It had like a chicken in it, and canned food, and all this other stuff. And I just I thought to myself, well, this is a lot of different stuff. Well, right about that time, a cop comes walking by, and I held up the bag. I pointed at it, and then I pointed at the guy that was running. He gave me the thumbs up, and he took off running after him. So then I sat back down with Tom and started talking to him a little bit. And then the door opens again. It's the same guy. This time, he has it's one of those needles that you use to blow up a basketball with. He had that in his hand, and he's kind of, doing this, kind of, and he said, I always loved looking at people before I use this on them, see how scared they are. And I stood up, and I ran right over to him, and I remember I punched him in the face. I grabbed the needle, and I threw it across the room, and then I kicked him in the stomach to get him to go down. And I said, fat chance that you're gonna inflict any harm on me, or or something like that. And he gets up and he's really mad, and he said, "I'm going to burn this place to the ground. You better run." And I felt compelled to start running, so I did. I took off running. And I ran to the back door, and I opened the door, and it was kind of like a mall, what I had walked into. And I looked across the mall, and I saw this sign that said Federal Reserve Bank. And I thought to myself, this is perfect. All the security in there, I'll just run in there and tell them what's happening, and they'll take care of it. So I ran into this bank, and I screamed that I was being chased by a killer or something. And I saw the lady behind the counter, and she hit this button that was on the desk. It was a big red button. Suddenly this bell went off, and all the gates dropped in front of all the teller windows, in front of the main entrance. And I looked over, and the guy was standing there. And I said, "That's great, lady." I said, "Now you just trapped me with this guy." And she said, "Oh, don't worry, there's about 50 guns pointed at him right now. He's not going to do anything." Well, the guy gets frustrated, and he pulls out of his pocket a grenade. And it looked just like the grenade that was out of RoboCop, the original RoboCop, a grenade that Clarence set on the table. And he's holding in the air, and he says, "This is exactly how I'm going to go. Whatever, if anybody shoots me, then this grenade goes off." And I just kind of stood there for a second, and I looked at the teller, and I said, "What am I supposed to do now?" And she says, "Well, you brought your suit, didn't you?" I said, "Suit?" She says, yeah, your suit." And then I looked down, and I'm wearing the hazmat suit from Half-Life. And I said, "Oh, that's right. I could definitely take a grenade impact with this." And I look over at the robber again, and he's like, "Oh crap!" He had that look in his face, like, "God, well, this isn't gonna do any good." And so I looked down, and in the floor starts coming up a little bit, and there's a little compartment underneath. It's like this one little area that this floor was coming up, and there was a gun in there. And I reached down, and I grabbed the gun, and I pointed at him, and I said, "You might as well drop the grenade now, because you're not going to take me out, and you're not going to take anybody else out." And it was right about that time that I woke up. And I really can't make out the dream too well. I haven't seen a Tom Arnold movie in forever. I haven't really even thought about him in forever. But for some reason, it was Tom Arnold that was behind that counter, and he owned the Subway. I don't know why I thought about Subway either. And then being chased was it was just weird. But obviously I've had weird dreams before, and that was definitely one of them. So, weird dream.